All right, y'all. Howdy, howdy. Chapter 62 in the Supreme, the witness appears. So now with this chapter, um, what I find particularly fascinating about this chapter, first of all, the individual that Maharaj is talking to seems fairly familiar with various different traditions and stuff of this nature. So it seems to be a very, I would say, pretty intelligent individual and just probably pretty along the path in general, I would assume. At least further along maybe than the average Joe, I would say, for sure. Maybe even too much just going on up, too much thinking and not enough experiencing, as probably Maharaj, you know, you know, would say or would agree with. That's the way I would say it. That's probably the way he would agree with it, though. Anyways, so especially in particular, for example, one of the things I found really, really interesting is that he talks about the occult. Well, the questioner talks about the occult, and as essentially kind of compares it to what to Nisargadatta Maharaj's teachings here, and he seems actually pretty open, especially when comparing various aspects, comparing them to each other. The observer, the observe, the grounds for observation, um, and really relating that to, like they say, the occultism and how it breaks up individuality, spirituality, personality, all these sort of things. I always find that stuff fascinating, and it's cool to see that sort of crossover a bit. So, like I say, I think in the past, I remember I remember a particular quote in one of the chapters, or when he was talking about he essentially, I don't remember the exact wording, but the idea behind it was that it's not really. It's all about you just gotta go down your path. You just gotta go down. You just gotta do your thing. It's less of because these are all, and even in here he talks about how these are all mere words. These are all ideas. Even the questioner says this is at one point says that this is just a dream. And all is a dream. Maharaj, all are mere words of what use are they to you? You are entangled in the web of verbal definitions and formulations. Go beyond your concepts and ideas in the silence of free of desire and thought. The truth is found. In the silence free of desire and thought, the truth is found. That's always like one that's once again, I think that's one of the biggest narratives of this. And I know it's funny. I'm doing this on Valentine's Day, so happy Valentine's Day and all for those watching. Right, I guess on the day of it, probably just another day for y'all. Um, but what is interesting is how he does incorporate love into all this. I mean, because that is a pretty fundamental aspect of all of this. He says. Let's see. What was it exactly? I don't remember exactly what references it. There's references talks about this love and how it is like an awareness. These are like the connecting forces to all this. This is how you get past this illusion of the person, this the outer self being the true self. You know that really it's all one. The supreme self, the inner self, the outer selves, all these different it, it's the distinction. These are distinctions that don't need to be really have a distinction in the eyes of Maharaj. They are all just one and the same, and I agree with this. I agree with this. I mean, even for example, the questioner even says there are teachers who will not talk of the higher self and lower self. They address the man as if only the lower self existed. Neither Buddha nor Christ ever mentioned a higher self. J. Krishna Marathi, too, fights shy of any mention of the higher self. Why is it so? Maharaj, how can there be two selves in one body? The I am is one. There is no higher I am and lower I am. All kinds of states of minds are presented to awareness. There is self identification with them. The objects of observation are not what they appear to be, and the attitudes they are met with are not what they need be. If you think that Buddha, Christ, or Krishnamurti speak to the person, you are mistaken. They know well that the Vekti, the outer self, is but a shadow of the Vakta, the inner self. They address the and diminish the Vekta only. They tell him to give attention to the outer self to guide and help it, to feel responsible for it. In short, to be fully aware of it. Awareness comes from the supreme and pervades the inner self. The so-called outer self is only that part of one's being of which one is not aware. One may be conscious, for every being is conscious, but one is not aware. What is included in awareness becomes the inner and outer partakes of the inner. You may put it differently. The body defines the outer self, consciousness the inner, and in pure awareness, the supreme is contacted. So that's what I mean with he's not, you can see that he's, like you say, there is no higher or lower I am, right? And especially like, and how would you that would be a whole other too, like pain in the butt, like if you're trying to transcend I am and there's like, oh, sorry, that's only the lower I am. There's like the higher I am you got to transcend too. So that would, be a pain. There's one self. The thing is, though, is this self, this being is the supreme. Ultimately, you are the supreme. There is no, these lines, they don't exist. So there's a beauty that I find in Maharaj. I think there is a magic in these sort of teachings. A lot of, I think people would say, no, they're quite the opposite. It's quite dry and mundane and boring. I disagree. I think there's a lot of, I think what you can see it. And especially, I do like when people do ask about other traditions in this and how he connects with them, and and it seems there's a lot of agreement on a lot of these traditions, even outside of Hinduism. A lot of it, for example, love. Love is important, and attention. These are two very important concepts, and in part of this overall thing that we're supposed to be doing, experiencing life. The questioner brought up how, Krishnamurti or some other guy would describe his life and in this very like broad sense and just being like that is the purpose is to experience life, not this little thing or that little thing. It's life. It's love. And yeah, I think that's a perfect way of putting it. I think that's a perfect way of phrasing it. And yeah, I I don't know how much more I can really add. Oh, there's one more interesting part. This was just more funny. So, during this conversation, at one point, the questioner asked, but do you mean to say you are quite unconscious of having a body? Maharaj, on the contrary, I am conscious of not having a body. And then the way the questioner responds to this, I found really funny. The questioner says, I see you smoking. So then imagine Maharaj talking about, I don't have a body while smoking, while smoking a cigarette. That's the sort of stuff I like. I like that sort of stuff. I love when gurus do that sort of stuff. I find that stuff funny. That's humorous. That to me is humor. There's a humor. There's hilarity in that. When Maharaj, in response to this, exactly so. You see me smoking. Find out for yourself how did you come to see me smoking, and you will easily realize that it is your I am the body state of mind that's responsible for this I see you smoking idea. I'm sorry. I thought that was humorous. I just thought that was humorous the way you just that I see you smoking idea. So I think I'm gonna normally leave on something deep and whatnot, but I think I'll just leave on that lighter note. Because I said that was funny, and that really hits the nail on the head too. Like, ultimately, you gotta get out of this. You gotta get out of the idea that you're the body, and you can't even just be like, "I am not the body," because that's also just as silly. Because even that, and just a few things later, actually, no, yeah, right afterwards, when he sees, the I see you smoking idea. The questioner says, "There is the body and there is myself. I know the body. Apart from it, what am I?" Maharaj responds to this: "There is no I apart from the body, nor the world. The three appear and disappear together. At the root is the sense I am. Go beyond it. The idea I am not the body is merely an antidote to the idea I am the body, which is false. What is that I am? Unless you know yourself, what else can you know?" So, even this idea that I am not the body, like I like that. He says it's an antidote. But it seems, yeah, the way to treat it's like the equivalent, you have like, an illness and you take a medication to treat the symptoms, treat as an antidote. But ultimately, in order to not get sick, one would have to have good health and whatnot. Um, Other things of that nature. I mean, I know it's medical stuff is complicated, but you get the idea, the basics. There's a way of treating antidotes as you get sick, versus like living and living a lifestyle where you try to prevent yourself from being sick in the first place by being actively healthy. That's the metaphor I'm trying to use here. And so that I am not a body is the equivalent of taking the medicine, which is, hey, when you're sick and you need that medicine, that's good. All right, it's a good idea. But eventually, you want to go beyond that dependency on the medicine itself, and so that's what this is. So on that note, I will say this is good. So thank you all for watching the video. Hope you all have a good one. Jai Gurudev, Hare Krishna, Namaste, peace.